the Lakers and Clippers game was not the NBA restart opening game, but it was the marquee game on the opening night of the NBA restart. The battle for LA. Even though it wasn't in LA, it was a really big, important matchup. And I got a lot to say, but number one overall, I got to say this before we get into the game and what happened. I need to start by saying that even though the Lakers won, they won 103-101 last night, I do not see how the Lakers can beat the Clippers in the long run down the stretch. I don't see a possibility where the Lakers beat the Clippers in let's say the Western Conference Finals. By the time they rematch, again, if it is that indeed the Western Conference Finals, Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell are going to be back. They're both still in quarantine waiting to come back. And if you don't know, Montrezl Harrell brings 18 points per game and a rebounding presence. Lou Williams can also score 18 points per game, but he also is a three-point shooter. And the Lakers struggled last night with a gimpy Clippers team that was not at full strength, and the Lakers barely won. And the fact that the Lakers barely beat that Clippers team that didn't have Montrezl Harrell, that didn't have Lou Williams, I'm really pretty sure that when the Clippers are at full strength, and again, I think I said Montez, I meant Montrez. I apologize if I said the wrong name. It's a talk show. You screw up at some point. I called the Lakers I said they were my NBA favorite, and after watching last night, I can see that was just a stupid, wrong, very bad take. And I can own that. I'm very comfortable with getting new information and going, oh, hey, I'm wrong. When I see I'm wrong, I want to admit it and acknowledge it. And in my opinion, the Clippers should be the favorite to win the NBA. It's very clear after last night. The fact that the Lakers barely won last night, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty and talk about the details, but given what the Clippers are bringing back to their team and the fact that the Lakers really struggled even last night, it's not a good sign. And if you're a Lakers fan, I don't know how you feel good about last night. I know you won. You're like, oh, great, we won. But if you look ahead to the future, I go, ooh, the future of that matchup, Clippers-Lakers, is not very bright, not very encouraging. Now, you can take a lot of angles about LeBron James last night. Here's what I saw. For most of the game, in my opinion, LeBron was kind of a Robin to Anthony Davis's Batman. Anthony Davis had 34 points. But part of why that happened, part of why LeBron took more of a backseat to Anthony Davis is that the Clippers are a team perfectly assembled to stop LeBron. They have two great, long, good on-ball defenders, Kawhi and Paul George. Not to mention an aggressive and kind of annoying defender, Patrick Beverley. And the Clippers can mostly shut down LeBron. And I think the way I say that, people think I'm probably pandering to LeBron. I'm not. I want to be very honest. I cannot come out and say that LeBron is so dominant he can beat Kawhi and Paul George. He can't. He needs help. It's very clear. LeBron ran into a wall last night with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Now, LeBron does pull so much attention on defense that it creates opportunities for his teammates. Look at Kyle Kuzma had 16 points last night. Anthony Davis at one point was being guarded by Patrick Patterson, whoever the heck that is. Patrick Patterson cannot guard Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis went on a tear. Had like 2 threes in a row, another big fadeaway. You're like, oh, okay, wow, this guy cannot stop Anthony Davis. And I like Alex Caruso. He's scrappy. He's got a lot of hustle. He's a fun Laker to watch, but he's not enough. Look at what happened. If you take a step back and think about it this way, the Clippers lost by 2 points last night. And things went well. They shut down LeBron in the first half. That's because, again, LeBron's being guarded by Kawhi and Paul George. He's really struggling. LeBron did not score at all in the first quarter. But when you think about it, okay, the Clippers barely lost by 2 points, and they were missing 2 players who averaged 18 points per game, Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams. The Clippers turned over the ball 22 times. Not to mention Paul George struggled to shoot in the first half. It's the first game back. Paul George is a little bit rusty. In the third quarter, at one point, Paul George hit 3 3-pointers in a row. Paul George is awake. And here's another angle you can take on LeBron James. You can talk about the way LeBron James ended the game. Because it's undeniable to me that LeBron showed up at the end when it was a close game and it mattered. LeBron James only had short moments last night. There was not a long stretch where, LeBron James was dominant. But we can say that at the end of the game, when it's close, LeBron James can turn it on for a little while and become dominant. He beat Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, who were switching while guarding him. He drove inside. He followed his own shot in the air in one single motion, grabbed his rebound, put it back, took the lead, and that's his bucket that won the game for the Lakers. And then on the next possession, the Clippers' final possession, LeBron handled a switch where he switched from Kawhi to Paul George, shut down Paul George, couldn't make the shot, ball game over. Clippers lose, Lakers win. And here's the problem with that. LeBron James cannot dominate the way he did at the end of the game last night. He cannot dominate Kawhi and Paul George for an entire game. He can turn it on at the end if the game is close. He can turn it on for a little bit. But I believe that if the Lakers and the Clippers rematch, let's say the Western Conference Finals, the Clippers are going to win in 6 games because they're going to have Lou Williams, they're going to have Montrezl Harrell back, and they're going to shoot better in the first half because they're not going to be rusty. They're not going to have 22 turnovers last night. It was really ugly by the Clippers. They're going to be more cohesive as time goes on. And I really believe that when the Clippers rematch with the Lakers, see if that does indeed happen, then the games aren't going to be close at the end. And LeBron's not going to be able to flip a switch and dominate at the end because they're going to be down 10 points. And if you're down 10 points, it's not the same as if it's a 1-point game, LeBron can put it into gear for the final 2 minutes and find a way to do what he did last night to Kawhi and Paul George. So I really think that despite losing last night, the Clippers have the Lakers' number. I just really, if you're a Laker fan, I don't know how you feel that LeBron and the Lakers should be the favorite moving forward. If I'm a Laker fan, I go, man, we gave our best effort and we barely beat the Clippers, so we're getting 2 more players back. They're going to play better next time. They're going to shoot better in the first half. I go, I don't know. I think it'll be a fun battle. But again, next time, if the Lakers and Clippers rematch, I have the Clippers winning in 6 games. By the way, a fun aside. I've been reading the Jack Reacher novels. It's a series by Lee Child. And so for anybody who gets this reference, I think it's really fun. If anybody understands this, if you've read Jack Reacher, I would say that Kawhi Leonard is the Jack Reacher of the NBA. He's this quiet, physically imposing, dominant player with no real flash. He doesn't really care about looks, although I will say that Kawhi does make really difficult things look easy. But you can say the same thing about Jack Reacher. It's even a movie with Tom Cruise, starring Tom Cruise. There's 2 of them, actually. The second one's not as good as the first. But Kawhi doesn't care how things look. Neither does Jack Reacher. They only care about winning. And so in my opinion, a fun little thing for anybody who cares, anybody who understands, in my opinion, Kawhi Leonard is the Jack Reacher of the NBA. Now, I have one final point. I want to give credit to LeBron James for his post-game interview. I mean, you think about it this way. LeBron James was literally seconds after winning. Hot, tired, sweaty. Again, he just won seconds ago. And then he goes to do a post-game interview on the court, and he gives a long, really a couple long, eloquent answers where he talked about spreading love and positive change in America. And I just want to give LeBron credit. He's an outstanding superstar. Forget how he plays on the court. It's really the way LeBron is an ambassador to the NBA. He's like the NBA's wise grandfather. He's a great representative of the NBA. And I just wanted to tip my cap. I don't know that we're going to see LeBron James win a championship this year. I'm pretty fearful and doubtful, honestly. I really love LeBron. I like him. I think he's a really classy, upstanding dude. I love the way he carries himself. I think it's really interesting the way that he's been famous for most of his life, and he's really handled it very well. He's a family man. And I don't know that we're going to get the LeBron finish I wanted this year. I'm like, LeBron, the Lakers, Anthony Davis. Oh, it's going to be awesome. Well, unfortunately, after last night, I feel pretty strongly that the Clippers should be the favorite to win the NBA Finals. And so now I just it was an opportunity. LeBron on the big stage in front of everybody gave some really great, eloquent answers. And I just appreciate LeBron. He's a great superstar. He carries himself really well. And I think he's unique in the way he speaks and his voice and who he is. And so I wanted to share that at the end. I really liked who LeBron is and the way he carries himself. But again, the final, if there's one thing to take away from this topic, it's that I'm not convinced that the Lakers have any chance down the road against the Clippers. The Clippers look dominant despite losing. They're going to add Montreal Harris. They're going to add Lou Williams. They're going to shoot better. They're not going to have 22 turnovers next time. And I really don't believe the Lakers have a shot down the road to beat the Clippers.